Can Arsenal finally take that big step forward from being title contenders to title winners for this upcoming season? Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome to another video. Yes, today's video is going to centre around that big question that is looming and overshadowing Arsenal right now, whether it be the manager or whether it be the players, of whether or not this Arsenal team are good enough to topple the machine known as Manchester City. This upcoming season is going to be huge. Manchester City are going to be going for 5 times in a row of being Premier League champions. Arsenal are going to be one of the realistic teams to topple them, one of the many teams that's going to look to topple them. But of course, with having fallen a little short of Manchester City in the past 2 seasons, many people are questioning whether Arsenal will have enough about them to finally topple City this season. We're going to be looking at Arsenal's transfer business. We're going to be looking at Arsenal's squad, what they need to have to improve upon, what they need to do in order to topple City and everything else in between. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you all, please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always and forever greatly appreciated. Get involved in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it. That makes for great and interesting reading, I'm sure, down below. So I'm sure it'll make for great interest in reading. Use and abuse that comment section. People would love to hear from you all on this. Do you think Arsenal can go that one step beyond and become Premier League champions for this season? Or do you see it being a rinse and repeat scenario of Manchester City obtaining their 5th Premier League title in a row? Interesting and exciting stuff awaits. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. Let's talk about that kind of scenario. So the situation is, as I've previously explained, Arsenal are one of the realistic teams that are going to be toppling Manchester City this season. You can maybe throw outsiders in there, the likes of your Liverpools, maybe your Manchester Uniteds with the business that they're doing, maybe. Outside of that, they're very much big outsiders. Manchester City and Arsenal seem to be the ones that everybody is tipping to be competing for the Premier League title. They're going to be in a title race. And rightfully so. We've seen them go head to head on the past couple of seasons. Arsenal had their chances to topple City. They haven't quite taken them. And City have used their experience, used their wealth of players and money and everything else, as well as obviously the brains behind the operation of Pep Guardiola, along with the experience and the leadership and everything else that they possess, to of course overcome this Arsenal challenge. And now they are looking at making it 5 Premier League title triumphs in a row. Arsenal are looking to win the title for the first time in over 20 years, when of course the Premier League season does kick off again in a few weeks' time. But what can they do to try and make that dream a reality? Well, to start off with, you make improvements in defence. Signing Ricardo Calafiori, for example. I think it's a quality signing by Arsenal. I think it's a very quality signing. I think he's a very versatile player who can play as left back and centre back. We know that Arteta has this kind of theory and belief of playing 4 centre backs in a back 4. He's obviously doing it with Ben White. He's obviously now looking at doing it with Calafiori. And I think Jurriën Timber as well of last season would have obviously been that piece of the puzzle as well. But of course with his big injury, I think that obviously that put a halt to plans there. Now, of course, Calafiori could be the backup centre-back to the likes of Gabriel and Saliba. Timber could also be now the same. They could also be the backup to each other. Depends which way round he wants to play. Does he want to play Calafiori as a left-back? Does he want to play Timber as a starting left-back? It's very interesting, and there's obviously a whole host of options there. And, of course, he does have other options behind that. Zinchenko, for example. Does Zinchenko now move into a more advanced role in the midfield? Does he become the backup? Because everyone does admire his leadership at Arsenal. There are just a few question marks over how this back 4 is going to set up. So the back 4 that was already extremely solid anyway because of how brilliant and how resolute their defence was last season, is now reinforced. And the thing I do praise about that is that whilst not many people may have said the back four does need improving, if the player's there to be got that will improve it, maybe not necessarily for the present, but maybe more so for the future, you go and get that player. You go and get that player. And not only that, but you don't rest on your laurels either. Arsenal's amazing defence of last season might not be the same as this upcoming season. Maybe there will be injuries. Maybe there will be other things that will go off that will make this Arsenal defence not as effective as what it was last season. There are a whole host of different factors to consider. But obtaining Calafiori, a young Italian centre-back who I've talked about on a few occasions on this channel already, so please do go back and check out those videos if you want more insight into my my take on Calafiori signing for Arsenal. Is that it's a very good signing. It reinforces what is already an extremely strong defence, and now they can look further forward. And I think that if they want to topple this City side, they have to improve the midfield and the wing positions. Now, of course, they are being linked with Mikel Merino, who I think will be an absolute unit for Arsenal in that midfield. It seems that they are keen on getting in a number 6 rather than a number 8, which means that Declan Rice is going to be that number 8 going forward, and I think that can obviously work. He can also be a bit of a hybrid into the number 6 as far as the number 8, but that's by the by. That's obviously for, again, Arteta to decide. But if they were to bring in Merino as well, an absolute destroyer in that midfield, a baseline to build your attacks on, someone who can break up play, someone who keeps things simple. He's not going to be the flashiest name, but he doesn't need to be the flashiest name. What we've seen of last season is Martin Odegaard be the orchestrator. He's pulling the strings in that in the more advanced positions for Arsenal. He's the creative force, the creative influence. You've got Bukayo Saka on one side. You've got the likes of Leandro Trossard and Gabriel Martinelli, depending on which one Arteta wants to play, on the other side. You've got Kai Havertz that works his socks off. Regardless of what you think of him, his work rate is incredible. You've got Declan Rice, who I think shocked a lot of people last season in terms of his goal and assist output, as well as obviously how people thought he might be playing a bit more defensive midfield. He's actually playing a bit more number 8, which he can do because he definitely has the engine to do so. He doesn't need to be the flashiest name in there. He doesn't need to be a creative influence. He just needs to be a destroyer. He just needs to sit there and be a protection on that back four. A protection on that back four, which is going to be strong anyway, but you add the extra protection in there and you are set. You've got Declan Rice, who can then go and do his thing. He can be a number 8 box-to-box midfielder. He can break lines from deep. He can obviously score a few goals from distance as well. And behind him is Merino, who will be covering. He'll be the guy that will have his head on a swivel. He'll be the guy to spot the dangers. He'll be the firefighter in that team, putting out those fires, recovering the ball for Arsenal, and then just giving it to one of the more influential, creative players of that team. If they were to bring in Merino, that would be an incredible signing for Arsenal and would be definitely something that they need to obviously bring in to strengthen what is already a strong and growing side. And then I think the final, well, not necessarily the final piece of the puzzle, but one of the final pieces of the puzzle will be a right winger. Just someone that can challenge Saka. Like, you could argue Trossard could be that guy, and then if so, you may need to then look for a left winger. So it doesn't necessarily matter which way round, because obviously, again, Trossard is so versatile. We saw him play on the left and keep Martinelli out of the team for large parts of last season. He can also play on the right, cutting on his left, that kind of thing as well. So As long as there is someone that can challenge Saka, whether it's someone out there that they can bring in to challenge Saka, or whether it's going to be Trossard and they bring someone else for the other side, there are linked with Nico Williams, who I think, again, if they could manage to tempt Williams into coming to Arsenal, I think that would be a brilliant signing. I liked him in the Euros. I've liked him for Bilbao over the past few years or so. I just think that would be a quality signing right there for Arsenal and could definitely improve their squad, could definitely beef up their squad in an area that needs beefing up. It means that Trossard could focus on the right-hand side. He can then challenge Saka, because I often think that Saka doesn't necessarily have someone to challenge or compete with his position, and often if he's not necessarily playing that well, you don't really have a much more balanced alternative that you could use, or a different sort of alternative that you could use. Trossard could be that guy, or whoever else you decide to bring in. And I think, again, it would be someone there that can definitely pick up the pieces for if someone else isn't playing very well. And I think, again, competition would be good for Saka. Competition would be good for Trossard. Competition would be good for Martinelli going forward. And then if you really, 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 really wanted to put the cherry on top of the cake, a striker. It's an area that I think Arsenal need to look at. And it's not necessarily for just scoring goals. Arsenal were fine last season in scoring goals, and I had to hold my hands up at large parts of last season and say I was wrong about Arsenal's front line. I didn't think there was enough goals there. I didn't think that there would be enough there to sort of challenge Manchester City with in terms of an attacking output. But of course, as I've been proven wrong, you can see for the stats yourself of last season in the amount of goals that Arsenal did score. Kai Havertz definitely shocked a few people, including myself, with his goal contributions output, as well as the likes of Trossard chipping in, Saka, of course, chipping in, Odegaard chipping in, even Declan Rice, like I say, chipping in, and of course Arsenal's set pieces with the likes of Gabriel and maybe even like Saliba and Ben White especially from time to time chipping in as well. The goal contributions started to filter out to other parts of the team. But the thing that obviously let Arsenal down, and if you really want to be nitpicky as to why Arsenal didn't win the title last season, it's because of certain games in which they dropped a few points here and there. You know, you look at the draw early on in the season to Fulham, 2-2. I think Fulham were down to 10 men at the time. Fulham get a very late equaliser. Arsenal could have, and probably should have, tried to kill the game off in that point. You look at other games, the game against Liverpool at Anfield, if they'd have been a bit braver, who knows what could have happened there. If they'd have been a bit braver against Manchester City as well, in the game at the Etihad. I know people will say, well, it's the Etihad, but I feel like if Arsenal were a bit braver in that game, they could have really taken the game to City, and they could have really made a statement as to their signal of intent. And then, of course, you could also look at Aston Villa, both games against Villa as well. I know that Villa did the double over them last season. Again, if Arsenal had been braver, if Arsenal had been a bit cleverer in that aspect, maybe that could have also turned the tide of the Premier League title race in their favour more and more so. Bringing in a striker that is a bit more clinical than what they already have in terms of like your Kai Havertz and definitely the likes of your Eddie Nketiahs and people like that, I think it will just tip the scales more and more so in Arsenal's favour. It will be a kind of striker that doesn't need 2 or 3 chances to put the ball into the back of the net. He can put the ball in the back of the net on a half chance. A sort of Erling Haaland type figure. Now, I know that Erling Haaland type strikers don't grow on trees, but you can definitely find someone that can somewhat replicate something along those lines. And especially when you consider, like I say, you have other areas of the team chipping in with certain goals and certain assists and goal contributions in general, that you just need someone to score the scrappy goals. You just need someone that is going to stand there, you give him the ball, and he's going to turn, shoot, find the back of the net. He's going to be in the right areas at the right times for you to cross the ball, and he's going to get across his man and head it into the back of the net. Things like that, things of that nature. I just think it is something that is somewhat overlooked, and I think it is something that, in terms of Arsenal depth, is somewhat lacking at times. It doesn't even have to be that kind of guy. It could be just a plan B type striker. It could just be a plan B type striker where you need to kill the game off, or you need to find a goal from somewhere to put yourself back in the lead, and you just go, right, we'll just plan B it. You know, like, for example, if I was to use my own team, Divock Origi. When Divock Origi was in this really weird patch of form in which he was just scoring very late goals, and he was just match winning from the subs bench. That's what the kind of figure Arsenal need, in my opinion. Someone like that. That's obviously better than Origi, with all due respect to our Lord and Saviour Divock Origi. But just off the top of my head, that's just the way I feel. Maybe a super sub, like an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, of obviously the infamous super sub. Or just someone that can obviously challenge Kai Havertz, again, given that competition. And again, just be someone that just needs one chance. Just needs one chance. Could be quiet for 89 minutes of a game, but you give him that one chance in the 90th minute, he's taking it and he's winning you games. He's scrappy. He's not exactly the most cleanest, but it will be effective. Those are just my thoughts on the Arsenal squad as a whole. But I don't think Arsenal, and I know we said this last year, and we said this, time and time again of the year before. But I don't think Arsenal will get a better opportunity again. I think with the way that United are moving, I think with the way that other teams may, of course, position themselves for maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, Arsenal may not get another chance at this. And it really does depend on how long you do give Mikel Arteta. I know there's talk about Pep Guardiola leaving, and that could obviously open the door more so for another year beyond next year if City are to win it. But it's a massive season for Arsenal, and not only on the Premier League front as well, but they really do need to start winning trophies. And I'm not going to give too much away about my predictions for the season, but I really do think they need to start winning trophies other than the Premier League as well. They need to really compete on multiple fronts this season. They have the squad to do it. Whether or not they're going to have the capabilities to do it, whether or not they're going to stay injury-free, whether or not other factors aren't going to come into play and ruin their plans for the season, I don't know. Obviously, only time will tell. But Arsenal certainly have the squad to compete on multiple fronts, and especially the Premier League title, and they have enough about them to topple City. But I still think they will need to sign those positions in particular. The DM role, a winger role, and if you want to put the cherry on top of the cake, a striker role as well. If they can get 2 of those 3 positions, mainly the first 2 that I mentioned, I think they'll have a real good chance of toppling Man City. If they get all 3, their chances increase, of course. But those are just my thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of Arsenal for the upcoming Premier League title race, the upcoming Premier League season? I'd love to know what you guys think and feel about their business so far, about the business that they're potentially looking at doing, and everything else in between. I'm sure it'll make for great and interesting reading down below. So please do use and abuse that comment section, people. Talk to me on this. Give me your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it down below. Would love to hear from you all. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things are always and very greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see you and speak with you all again soon in another video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Speak to you all again very, very soon.